was thinking about it. Hey there, we are live with Chad Austin today, and it is February 7th as we're recording this, and Chad is a fitness expert, and I was just saying, man, now's about the time those fitness goals may have already failed. I remember we were just talking about this, I worked at a boutique fitness place in January. And I thought, people probably aren't that big on New Year's resolutions. And I think we like double or triple our membership, we usually enroll in January. Yeah, it was wild. So he is here to tell us. Welcome, Chad, by the way. Sorry, I'll take a breath here for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yes. So you're here because Chad is really great at helping people get back to their, have their body is back and get back into fitness by helping it fit into your life. And this is a perfect conversation for February. I feel like we have an F alliteration going here. This is a perfect time for February because it's about creating lasting change and lasting fitness goals. So welcome to the show, Chad. Tell us a little bit more about your story. Who do you serve? How do you help people?
Yeah. So I'm a personal trainer and an author. I'm working as a personal trainer here close to Kansas City for about 20 years now. I was actually a PE teacher for 3 years before that. So I'm definitely learned that the cliche is true that, when you're a coach, you're a better athlete. When you're a teacher, you're a better student. And when you're a personal trainer, you're better at making fitness a priority in your own life. And so I've gone through all the evolution that you think of at this point in my career. I started out as a trainer at a gym, and I learned probably the tough lesson you learn, most career trainers, that, everyone comes to you fueled by short-term motivation. There's something coming up in their lives that they want fast results for, right? Whether it be a wedding or a vacation or a retreat. And so I think the first tough lesson for me was just learning that short-term motivation leads to short-term results. And so once I learned that lesson, all the rest of my career has been about helping people really get long-term success. I want to turn people into what I call a fitness fisherman. The story, you give someone a fish, you feed them for a day. You teach someone to fish, you feed them for the rest of their life. I want to make an impact long after my time with my clients are over. I want to help them learn how to keep fitness a priority in their life, no matter what happens, whether things are going good or bad. They have the ability to show up to life as their best self. And I think that's the biggest impact. That's the purpose really of a fitness professional, is to help you learn how to keep fitness a part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to dive more into that. But before we get into exactly how do you do that, because everybody wants to know here, I think one of the hows really is to understand the why of, why do we even want to be fit? Or what's the actual benefits of that? Tell us more, Chad.
That's a very good question, because we don't have a sense of urgency when it comes to our health. When something changes in our life or we go through adversity, we're really quick with urgency and to adapt when it comes to our family, our career, our faith, those things that we deem most important. But fitness is always what we're going to get to later, right? It's always something we'll get to later. We don't have to now. Why do we need to now? And I think the answer to that question I've learned for myself is that it is my best medicine. I know when I'm taking good care of myself, I'm a better husband, I'm a better son, I'm a better friend to everyone in my life. I handle my anxiety, my stress, I'm more creative, I'm more confident. I'm just the best version of myself. And on the flip side of that, the opposite is true. If I don't take good care of myself, and I don't have the energy, I don't have the confidence, I don't have the creativity, I don't feel good about how I look or feel, and I'm probably the worst version of myself, which then hurts my relationships. And so to me, it doesn't really matter what you would say are the most important things in your life that you would quickly adapt to, whether it be your friends, your family, your career. You won't be able to show up as the best version of yourself if you don't take care of yourself first.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And before we jumped on, we were talking about how I jumped back into fitness. And after my kids I was almost done nursing my third child. And I was like, I gotta go do, fitness instructing. Mm-hmm. But I remember one of the things after I had a few kids was just realizing, okay, so you talk about fitting fitness into your life. And I just was not fitting it into my life because I had so much mom guilt around, okay, my kids need me all the time. They're just constantly wanting mom. Every time I leave the house, they're, crying. They can't be away from me for 5 seconds. And I just remember feeling so much mom guilt that I can't go to the gym. I can't go out and run. I can't. And then my husband was in school and I was like, I don't know, looking back, I'm like, what were you thinking? But I was just so self-sacrificing that I didn't take time for myself. And then finally it was what you said, where I just realized, you know what? I'm a better mom when I go exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that mom guilt. I'm sure I've heard that before, but the way you explained it right there, really, I think I have business owner guilt. So I think that's been a big part of mine as I've, went from being an employee at a gym to then being an independent contractor, then having my own studio, then, and I think I've always, do I really have time to be working out? I need to be working on my business, kind of thing. And so there's probably so many different versions of that guilt, but yeah, we all go through it. And that's again, fitness isn't as important right now. We can get to it later.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah. And then what happens if you don't get to it later though? Do you see that breakdown for people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not doing it. And because we just, what I've learned is the best thing I can do for people is, when I speak, it's not my goal to try to convince people that exercise and nutrition is important because, everybody already knows that. But when I actually first wrote my first book at Make Fitness a Priority, I have a book series. When I wrote it, I started with the poll question. I just asked as many people as I could, what are your top priorities in life? And that's was taught me so much because the top answers were family, career, faith. Nobody said health and fitness. There was over 100 people took this, and half of them knew it was a personal trainer that sent them the poll question, and they still didn't think to say health and fitness. But that's just the way we think about it. It's always something we can get to later. We got plenty of time, and we don't realize the disservice we're doing. And really, in my mind, it puts us on what I call the inconsistency roller coaster, where we start out as when fitness is in our life, we're the best version of ourselves. But then as our life changes, what we did for fitness doesn't fit in our life anymore. And so then we end up, since we don't adapt to it, we end up in a place where fitness is not a part of our life. And the longer we are there, the farther we get from being the best version of ourselves. And then the worst part of it is then the deeper our desire to look and feel better and to have change happens, which makes us the easiest prey for all the predators out there that'll take advantage of that with scams and promises of fast results with no work on our part, easier paths. And when you really want to look and feel better, even the smartest person's judgment is clouded. So it makes it that much more important that as fitness professionals, we really can help our clients understand certain important things about how to figure out how fitness fits in your life. And just because it fit differently now than it did in the past doesn't make it less important. If you're doing less than you did in the past, it doesn't make it less important. It just means it fits differently right now, but it's got to be there somewhere.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And I think it goes back to what you're saying, that version of guilt of, okay, I know I've got to be doing this. And then the farther away you get from it, then you just don't have the same motivation. And I actually had you guys know, I've had a couple years where I was just depressed. I was struggling with this I call it high functioning depression, but I just couldn't do the things that I loved anymore. I couldn't get myself out of bed. I just did not want to go exercise when I had been exercising every single day. And even going back to it now recently, I'm like, whoa, you just forget. Like, whoa, I feel so much better, like 10 times better. I have so much more energy. I just feel better. I'm more patient with my kids. I love, it's just a totally different thing. And I think that's part of the thing too, is you just forget that it's worth it and how worth it is. And so for you, when you're saying fitness back in your life, let's imagine anyone watching this who maybe you got started, you did your, New Year's resolution, or maybe you're thinking of getting started again. What do you tell people and how do you help them fit it back in their life?
Yeah, I think I do a program I call the Cleanse and Reset with people. And so that started as I was actually on a podcast, and someone asked me, one of the hosts asked me a question at the end, and it just kind of stumped me because it's just like such a basic question, but no one's asked me. They said, what's your definition? What's the definition of fitness? and I had no one asked that. I was like, what? And so when I got done with the interview, I actually asked my wife, and she responded by pulling out her phone and saying, hey, Google, what's the definition of fitness? So that seems like such a basic answer. But I basically just refused to answer. I'm like, I can only answer that for myself. Everyone has their own answer and so I think that is something I learned a while back, and that is how I think is the best way to start with everyone. So the fitness cleanse. That's part of the reason I called it a cleanse, is because I just stumbled across some really important questions. I think everyone needs to ask themselves these questions. And what's the best way to do it? Well, everyone wants to do a cleanse. It's so popular. We'll just call it that. And so, but this is a cleanse for your mind. You're just like a cleanse would do for your body. You're ridding your mind of all the toxic stuff, toxic way of thinking you don't need anymore. And you're going to replace it with what fits better in your life right now. And so the first question of the cleanse is just, what's your definition of fitness? And so and another way to say it, because sometimes you might respond the same way I did in the interview. And the better way to say it is, what does fitness mean to you right now? So I think what fitness means to us, our definition of fitness changes as our life changes, and that's perfectly fine. But we can't start with our past definition of what fitness was. It's like doing something you did in your 20s now when you're 40. It just won't fit in your life anymore. And so you have to know what fitness means to you right now. It's like, for example, in my 20s, when I first joined 24-hour fitness and was worked there, I was brand new to the city. I was single. I didn't know anybody. I actually lived right behind the gym, so I could walk there. And I was a brand new trainer with like 15 trainers, so my definition of fitness. So I had like 2 hours a day to work out, and I was in such good shape. It was all about looking as good as I could, being as ripped as I could. Right. And now my definition of fitness is much different than that. Plus I don't have the time for it, because I have my own business. I'm married. I speak, I write, I do all these other things. But it's more about, it's always a little bit about how I feel, but it's more now about, or it's always a little bit about how I look, but it's more now about how I feel. I mean, I know the fitness, having it being part of my life, it helps me handle my anxiety better, helps me handle my stress better. It helps me show up as the best version of myself so that I can pass that on and help other people do the same thing.
And so what are some specific tips or things that you've seen work for people?
Well, one of them, since we've said a few times that this is the middle or the beginning of February, so everyone's failed now, right? All fitness professionals hate these New Year's resolution stats, by the way, anyways. And the reason we hate it, I mean, we help people set goals and achieve them for a living. We should like New Year's resolutions, but it's been ruined because everything about it is about how we fail. And who determines our failure? Fail, just like any other goal you want to accomplish. Fail or being perfect should not be the bar. That's an impossible bar to set. You're going to fail. It's inevitable. You're going to miss a workout. You're going to eat something you didn't mean to because you didn't plan ahead or something, or who knows what happens, but you're going to make mistakes. And so it's actually the failing that can propel us forward, because we do our best when on the days that after we fail, when we are able to learn from our mistakes and get back on track. And so that is really probably, I think, the best piece of advice right about now for anyone that may be punishing themselves because they didn't stick with it like everyone said you're supposed to. But just knowing that failing is part of the journey. That's part of it. Everyone's going to fail. If anyone's trying to tell you that they haven't failed yet, they're lying, or their time is coming. they're going to. And so it's really about how you respond after you do fail. That's going to help make this be something that really sticks in your life and can be really your identity, that you are a fit person. You're not just doing this because you started the year with extra motivation.
Right. Yeah. And I love what you said there too about, well, I think it goes back to what you were saying in general, that maybe the reason we're failing and the reason you stop after you fail is because your definition wasn't really in alignment to I had this goal that was, I wasn't doing anything, and now I'm going to do it every single day, twice a day, and lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks or whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's this completely, and this is what perfect looks like. And this is what I'm going to go from 0 to 60. And really it's about stepping back and saying, this is who I am. Right.
Yeah.
This is who I am now. Yeah.
That's so powerful too when you realize that, when it's about figuring out how fitness fits in your life. I feel like that is really what my strength is now. I mean, I started out, I was an athlete in college. So when I first became into personal training, I was wanting to work with athletes, and then it was more about, but I mean, it changed so much, but now it's really, my strength is I help people figure out how fitness fits in their life now that their life is different than it used to be. And so if you're a small business owner, a parent, a coach, and ex-athlete, somehow your life is different now. And what you used to do that you may be stuck on, that if I can't do this, I don't have time for it. Or if I can't do this, I'm not doing enough. And it may look differently in your life now, but it doesn't mean that it's not just as important. And it doesn't mean that, that you're not making it a priority by doing less. But yeah, that's the hard part, I think, for all of us, is just, to be okay with how fitness changes in our life, and still understanding that we're our best version of ourselves if we stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, can you tell us a little bit more? How do you, outside of Kansas, inside near Kansas City, and outside of that, how do you support people with this?
The fitnesspivot.com, where you can find me. I do in-person training. Of course, I always love working with people, but I have online options. So the coaching part of me, I was, like I said, I was a coach and a teacher before I became a trainer. And so that will always be part of me. I want to teach you how to do this for yourself. So the Cleanse and Reset is a program that is available on my website. And along with my community. And so just like anyone else, with a tough goal, having a community is very important. Not only having a community, but having the right community. You know, if you're on a fitness journey, I think it was Jim Rohn that said that, you know, you are the average of the 5 people around you. I like that, but I don't mean, that doesn't necessarily, when you hear that, if the people around you aren't on a fitness journey like you are, that doesn't mean they don't need to be in your life anymore. But it does mean that you need to have people in your life that are. If you're the only people in your life are people that are going to be dismissive of every win you have, then you're set yourself up to fail. You need, I mean, especially if you're starting a big goal. If you have a big weight loss goal, or if a big goal, it's going to take some time. The finish line is far away, and you need to be able to not look there, but look how far you've come, and keep stacking all the wins along the way. And you want people in your life that are going to celebrate all of those with you, so you can kind of keep building up your confidence. And so that's why a fitness community is important. But if you don't have one, welcome to mine, the Fitness Pivot. We'd love to have you. You're going to be surrounded by people who are going to encourage you every step of the way and pick you up when you fall. And you need that with every goal you have in life.
Yes. And what I understand is your community is all about accountability and just, yeah, like you said, picking each other up, cheering each other on, staying on track. And I remember I ran, speaking of fitness goals being different at different times in your life, I decided one day that I was going to run a marathon. You know, it's one of those bucket list things. But at the time, I loved running, but I'd only ever run 5 miles was the top I've ever been run, which is probably more than most people, but I couldn't run more than 5 miles. And actually I thought, oh, my knees start hurting at 5 miles, so there's no way I can run a marathon. But I decided to do it anyway. And you know what you're saying about surrounding yourself with those people was the exact thing that I needed in order to run my marathon, because you get going and you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this. And then you get into the training and it gets hard. And then people are telling you stuff like, oh, you know, like, wow, a marathon, that's really hard. Or like, wow, how do you find time for that? Or wow, I'd never be able to do that. That's, you know, and so it's like, there's these normal people, average people who aren't on the same journey as you, like you're saying. It's not even that they're trying, it's not that they're trying to be supportive. They're not trying to drag you down. They're trying to be like, wow, you're doing such a great job. But the reality is they're just seeding all this doubt of, oh yeah, I could, that's not me, or I can never do that, or whatever. But whenever you start hanging out with marathon runners, when I finally did, well, I hung out with a friend of mine that did triathlons, and she was actually weighed maybe twice as much as I did. I mean, she wasn't like super skinny, what you would imagine is like the triathlete, you know. And she would tell me stuff like, oh, you can do twice as much as you think you can, you know. And she'd be rooting me on, and we ran 10 miles together, and whenever I had only run 5. And then when I finally did do the marathon, there were people on there that were like doing their 50th, they're 50 states. One guy was running his 50
Oh, wow. Yeah.
states. And I was talking to this other lady who was like, she's like in her 60s and she runs a marathon every month. And I just,
Wow.
and you get around those people where it's just like, well, this is who we are. This is like, of course, marathons are so easy, oh, this is just your first. I do one every month, and it makes it seem like, oh yeah, of course I can do this. This is no big deal.
Yeah. That community, just that it's contagious. That confidence, that positivity you'll get from it. It just there's no end to how much it can build up in you. It's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So are there anything else that we haven't covered so far that you want to make sure people hear?
Well, I think what we said earlier about the cleanse, I think there's probably one more part there. I'll give you the second part of the cleanse that I do. So it starts with knowing what your definition of fitness is, and so understanding that as our life changes, our definition of fitness changes. And just a quick thing on that, like everyone's perception of fitness is different. There's a lot of misconceptions out there when it comes to personal training. I've been in fitness for over 20 years now, so in any field, if you've been in that long, you get to help the people that you love, right? So I've got a lot of friends and family I've got to train. The person that was probably the most resistant, took the longest to train, was my biggest supporter, my dad. And because when he thought of personal training, he thought of bodybuilding. And so that was what he thought of it. But for him, bodybuilding, maybe when he was younger, that could have been it if he wanted it to be. But what fitness means to my dad, it's more about being able to be an active grandpa, being able to move without pain, being able to have all his energy and everything that he has when he's been younger. And so it could be, your definition could be about weight loss. It could be about being strong. It could be about handling your stress or your energy. So it doesn't matter what it is. It just matters. You have to be honest with yourself and know what it is right now, and know that. And every time you answer the question, it might be a little bit different. So that your definition will change throughout the course of a year. But after you understand what your definition is, and you know what you want to get out of what fitness means to you right now, then the next important part is why. Why is this important to you right now?
Ooh,
and
yeah.
in fitness, we know the phrase, the why fuel, because when in any goal, like running for a marathon or weight loss, whatever it is, there's going to be tough times. There's going to be days where you don't want to do it. There's going to be days where you don't want to make the sacrifices. You don't want to do all the stuff. And when those days come, you need to know why you're doing it. When you don't want to do it, when you don't want to do the obstacles, you don't want to go through the adversity, you don't want to do the hard part, you need to know why you're doing it. If you don't know why you're doing it, you're not going to stick it. You're not going to stick through on those days. So not only answering why, but know that your first answer is vague. Your first answer is way too vague when you answer that question. Dig deeper, dig deeper, dig deeper some more. The deeper you dig to get to the root of why this is important to you, the more powerful you're going to be whenever those days come up that you don't want to do it. And it's going to make you unstoppable if you dig far enough. So that would be the next thing I would make sure you know. You need to know your definition of fitness whenever you're starting or restarting a fitness journey. You also need to know why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's really, really good, really insightful. And even whenever you were talking again about what's your definition of fitness, just whenever you're listing those off, I thought, wow, that does make it feel a lot lighter. It doesn't feel as, I think sometimes there's that part of us that's like, get back in there, do this, you didn't do enough, and you're not measuring up. But what you're saying about, okay, fitness means, what do I need to do to be a good grandfather who can hang out after, or, who can chase after his kids? Or what do I, for me, for a while, it was just like, what's fun? How can I move my body in a fun way? And I don't even care if I'm getting results. I just want to go have fun. And so I even did pole dancing for a while. I tried that because I was like, what's going to be fun? And it was fun for a while. So, but the why behind it too, that's a really great point that you're making as well, is like, why are you really doing it?
Yeah. And so like I know my mom, she was one of my first my dad's probably one of the toughest ones to get started. My mom was probably one of my first big success stories. And her why, like I said, the more pain you can find behind your why, the better it is too. And so we were on a ski trip, And we used to go on a ski trip as a family every year, and we had gone a long time without it. And this particular ski trip, it was the first time my nephews went with us. And so my nephews were both too young to even have poles. And so they were pictured little kids with skis, but not poles. And they were learning how to ski the first time. And so this is a big deal for grandmother. And but we went down the mountain one time, and my mom had not realized how deconditioned she was. But she had problems with her back, she had problems with her knees, she had problems with everything. And so that one trip down the mountain was the only time she did it the whole time. And so as soon as we got back, that is when her fitness journey started. And she had lost like over 80 pounds. She wasn't a diabetic anymore. She had all this, but she wanted to be an active, involved grandmother. And so that was her big why. And so, but I mean, you need to be able to have that level of pain, that level of depth to your why, rather than just, I want to feel better, I want to be lighter, I want to, I want to lose weight.
I want my muscles to be more toned, or I want a six pack, or whatever.
Yeah. That's not enough to get you through the really hard days. So that's enough to get you going for a little while, but you really need to have a deep reason behind it if you want this to become your new identity.
I was coaching when I was a health coach. I was coaching somebody one time, and she was telling me this story about how she went to the chiropractor, and there was a poster on the wall. And I think this illustrates exactly what you're saying. Well, on the wall, there was a poster, and there was two couples. One of the couples was on a cruise ship, laughing, having a great time. And the other one was in a nursing home. And she said that stuck with her ever since. And I just always use that in my events and in my talks too, because I'm like, the reality is, if you really look at the statistics, as Americans, we are not healthy. We're not healthy. We have, on average, it's 17 years disability. Average, you live in 17 years disability, right? And then if you look at all the statistics around, like, diabetes is 1 in 4 people. People who die of heart attacks, 1 in 4 people. It's like, when you run through it, it's ridiculous. And so, do you want to be on the cruise ship? Do you want to spend your whole life spending your money and your time and everything for your retirement, and then you're spending all of your money and time in the nursing home?
Taking care of yourself that you could have done before.
Yeah. It's so like, and one more quick story there. My husband's parents retired early. They're not even, they're like early 60s. And I asked him, "Oh, hey, how's retirement going?" And he's like, "Wow, it's really busy because I spend all the time like at doctor's appointments."
Oh, wow. That doesn't sound like a fun retirement.
No, yeah, but it's like, it's the reality though.
Yeah.
But goes back to what you were saying earlier, that it's not a priority right now when everything else is okay, but it's not a priority. Yeah. A lot of times it's not a priority until it's an emergency. And it's unfortunate, but don't let that be you.
Yeah. That's what makes our job that much harder, or more important, that we help people realize the disservice they're doing if they're putting it off till later, that their vehicles or fitness should be the tool that helps you show up as your best self now. It's not something that you don't want to put it on the shelf and not use it. It should be a tool you use every day.
And it doesn't have to take you all day to use it. So that's incredible. Well, again, if you want to learn more from Chad, he's at thefitnesspivot.com. You can join his community where you can get the accountability and what you need to get going on your fitness journey and fitting it back in your life. Is there any last words you want to leave us with today, Chad?
No, just if you heard something that inspired you today, that's what I love doing, is helping people figure out how fitness fits in their life. And if you're someone who's struggling to get past the "I'm too busy" excuse, or if you're struggling to get fitness to be something that sticks in your life and it just seems to be something that you have in spurts, then it's time to figure out how it really fits.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chad. Thank you. And good luck if you did hear something that inspired you today, please comment below. Let us know what it was. And hang out with Chad some more. He's the cool kids. He's your marathon buddy. He's going to get you going. So thank you again for coming today, Chad. And we'll talk to you guys soon.